All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening or watching. And no, I don't have a picture in this video because, well, I don't, and I'm very, very blah like that. So I apologize. My name is Brandon. I am the 39-year-old that is mentioned in the informational packet that you will have likely seen before hearing this particular audio piece. Now, for those of you that know me, I, of course, have varying degrees of social media, but we're not going to talk about that at the moment. The point here to this discussion is to sort of talk a little bit about SAD-T, sacral autonomic dyssynergia prenatal tributylane subtype, and I can speak one day in my life, and perhaps the time I should be able to speak is the time in which I am recording a presentation, not when I'm having a word glitch. That's okay. I don't want this video edited. I want it raw. I want it unfiltered, and I do apologize for the TikTok videos and Reddit stories in the background that you may be hearing if they're infiltrating my audio source here, so I apologize for that in the background. I have experienced this condition all my life, and many of you that maybe didn't know this, my birth doctor notified my mom years ago he's going to need an unusual form of regulation, and it's going to be difficult because he's going to get bullied because it's non-standard and it's medical. Our clinic can't regulate him. We can regulate him now. I was an infant, they could regulate me then, obviously, but as I got older, they, boundaries and adult age and societal mores, as it were. Anybody that's ever taken social science, not social studies, has ever heard or studied norms, mores, and laws, as they say. But in this case, I have a condition that sort of transcends a lot of boundaries to people, according to them. And I say according to them for a reason. When you've weaponized a condition like mine, which has been the experience I've had for, well, as I said, 34 out of 39 years, you sort of begin to realize in your lifetime what damage it actually does. What is it like? And again, I don't want to emphasize this point in a way that sounds difficult to cross over. What I want to do is emphasize the reality. Okay, what is the reality? The reality is that this is a condition that will never go away. This is a reality that I will always have to face. I faced it at birth. I faced it at 5 years old. I faced it at 10 years old. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Almost going to be turning 40 in December. Before we knew what the name of the condition was, which I didn't even know in 2018, despite the fact that there was research enough done to give this condition a name, SAD-T, a name. Some people might prefer pronunciation as SAD-T, SAD-T, a name. It sort of, how else were you going to describe being regulated without being vague? You couldn't. As a child, I was faced with having to say, and even into my early adulthood, I have a condition that affects, I'm going to need to be held a certain way, wrapped around you, facing you in a constant hug. I wrote, when I finally realized what I experienced, I wrote a document one time, and I remember showing it to somebody, and to prove how professionalism tends to overtake reality, they went to their boss, and we got a phone call, and it bothered them, and they wanted to have discussion about it. And I I chose not to work with him again. I had to mask my reality to the boss because it's unconventional. How are you going to fight the system that failed you with the lack of knowledge I didn't have back then? I think back to '02 and what happened with the Turkey Bowl in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and which was a football game where a bunch of youth pastors got together and played a little flag football. These were youth pastors that from different cities around the Nebraska Panhandle. Our youth pastor was one of them. They had a little flag football, and it was just a fun little get together. In the meantime, I'm sitting here. I prefer female friends because I've been traumatized by men. I was even traumatized by men before I ever got through dealing with my dad. The experience is there. And I didn't have any sister figures. Nobody really knows this, but before I was born, my mom had a daughter. She was forced to give her up for adoption, and that's a long story. I won't go no further than that. When I say forced, I'm not talking she ran into hardship that forced her to do it, in the sense of, financial or other, in that respect. But intense family arguing and altercation and force from elder family members that preferred to intervene in her decision making. And it's something she regretted, but it also meant that I didn't have a sister. Biologically, I do. But in the physical sense, no. Let me explain that. That meant I was lacking the one thing, the nurturing arms of a sister. Now, some of you might watch this, and if you physically remember me from before, and you're running into the channel that this is going on, or channels, ... and I say that in case this goes into multiple scopes, you're going to say, well, I never knew this. And you're probably going to be sitting there with guilt written on your face going, why didn't you tell me this then? A lot of my family situations I kept quiet about because privacy is a thing to me. And I'm now realizing how that quietness actually impacted some of the judgment that I've had to deal with. You're going to ask how this relates to SAD-T here in a minute, but we're going to get to that as the scope of this rolls along. So I ask you to bear with me, because this is not going to be your short file that sort of says about 5 or 6 words and then I turn around and stop. This is a real life situation. This is a call to action to society. This isn't about trying to impress here. I'm not here to candy coat where we are and what we have to do. I'm a big believer in truth and fact. I want you to remember that throughout this discussion. Truth and fact. Say those words in your head, because you're going to be thinking those as we go. My family members, as a result of me not having a sister figure, I was literally surrounded, with the exception of my mom and a few people, by mostly male figures who, were I honest with you, I would say that they weren't not every one of them had the best intentions. Some tormented. Some did some dirty things. What female figures I was around at the time, some of them were judgy, touchy-judgy. They were not nurturing. They didn't, well, if this is what he needs, this is what I'll do. They were critical. Very, very critical. And let me be real. You can only be so critical for so long until reality slaps you right in the jaw, as it has done me for 34 years, in varying ways. We live in a society. If a woman said, I need a brother, you don't hear a group owner or a person with some kind of whatever say, well, that's suspicious. That's very, very suspicious. You don't hear that. As a matter of fact, here's what you hear. You hear this. You hear, okay, I think I know some people I could get you introduced to and they're compassionate about it. The woman expresses her own medical difficulties, and the man is generally very understanding. Men can be nurturing too. The mantra that men are always the tough, always the self-sufficient is not true, because there are those, myself included, who run into struggles like I run into. Maybe different struggles than I have, but they still run into struggles. SAD-T being one of them for me. Let me tell you what it's like to live the life of somebody with my condition. You're a female standing or sitting across from me at a chair. Now, if you listen to the audio that precedes this audio, you'll have a clear understanding. And I have to apologize. During the research, because of smart punctuation, some synthesizers do not like smart punctuation. So the a euro sound repetition is due to some of that. There are some parts where that breaks horribly. I'm gonna have to probably figure out a way to redo that where it's not so painful. But what is it like to live with this? All right, so let's say you're the person sitting in the red recliner. Let me tell you where I'm currently sitting as I record this audio. Right now, I'm sitting on my living room floor in front of my 1980 Gem organ that was donated to me. Behind me is a red reclining chair. Well, it's behind me and to my right. And right now, sitting in that recliner chair isn't a person. It's a radio. One of my hobbies, I collect radios. Alarm clock radios, to be exact. Don't believe me? Well, then what's this? Anyway. When a person is new that's introduced to me who asks about my condition, even down to the brim, when we're talking on the phone, they'll say, oh yeah, sure. I have no problem. You need a lap? You need to wrap around me? Just come to me. That's until they show up at the door. And they physically see the guy they're looking at, because I'm a little more, I guess you could say, pudgy than I used to be. I gained some weight. Stress does that. And I've lived a long life of stress. An unhealthy level of stress. Trauma. Shame. Bullying. hatred, ostracization, isolation. All for a rare medical condition that, by the way, should I point out, is not known on a Google search unless you can somehow deep research it. I'll talk about society's failure here in a minute, but you're gonna see what I mean by society's failure when I explain the condition. Well, I don't have to explain the condition because you'll have audio with that explanation preceding this, but I approach this video assuming that you know or have listened to the prior video. If you've not, please go back and look at the SADT Explained video that will precede this. And then come back and pick up where you left off on this one. Say you're the girl that just said, hey, if you need a lap, I'll regulate you. You just tell me what I need to do. I come to you and your reaction is very awkward, off-putting. Of course I'm going to back up. Of course I'm going to cower back sideways. Of course I'm going to put my head down. You promised me I was fine. But you don't understand it. This condition doesn't know personal space. It doesn't know your emotions. It cannot register. It is a frozen, infantile wiring pattern that does not, I repeat, does not mature. And just because you think that weight, stature, leg condition, i.e. hamstrings, i.e. Limited muscle function, affect your ability, they won't, because I'm what you call a natural weight shifter. Walking by me is a person who's advocated for me for quite a while now, and if you can hear her from across the way, she'll tell you, if I can't crush her, and she is low weight, she can tell you I weight shift very, very easily. Maybe a little too easily. I adapt to you. In fact, sometimes I adapt so much I have to say, hey, you don't need to be that light on me. Do what you need to do. Sometimes they have to be a little, not firm, but just reassuring. Like, hey, here's the sad part. There are only 3 people who get it. And they're all at one portion of the house or another. One watching a TikTok video or a series of them to my left. One down the hallway right now who just passed me. One currently sleeping. 3. Uno, dos, tres. Tres. Trois. Dry. Dri. I do know how to say numbers in various languages. As a kid, I used to be able to speak 7 of them. But irrelevant to the facts. Here's the deal, though. So that minute you come up with the what ifs, I have no problems answering the what ifs. What I don't like is when people try to avoid both holding to their word and or when they shift their demeanor to try to account for that. So here's the deal. Make sure I'm still recording. Yes, okay, I am. Thank you. Um, that's my screen reader in the background. I'm totally blind. When you reject after saying you will, for me it's a red flag, because my condition doesn't understand I just got here or I'm overstimulated. The only thing it understands is that you're the closest person to me, and I'm putting my trust in you, the very being who said you would do what you are going to do. Independence does not just mean the ability to be a fast thinker or to do things on your own. But for a SAD-T patient requires that they learn to reach out to others other than those they're around, that they live with on a daily basis. It also means that your ability to sort of understand a condition, if when explained you say you understand but don't, you're contributing to what I've already lived with for 34 years. You are. You could say, well, I don't mean to. It's just out of my comfort zone, or it's XYZ. My autonomic nervous system does not know your comfort level and can't, because, as I said it before, it's stuck in an infantile wiring pattern. What that means is, so think about if I turned around and I just repeat the same word, like that. What's happened there is it's stuck in a loop. Except in this case, it's like if I freeze my voice. Now, I have effects on my other computer. I could, if I'd recorded this on there, where I could freeze my voice in real time as a demonstration of what I mean. Think of that kid that, while they physically grow up, their voice never does, and so they sound tiny, right? Even if they grow up, they age, they could be 20, 30. But when you hear them talk, you think, little kid, because their voice is so small. Now, I talk about that because the point I'm making is that you cannot, your personal self is incapable of rewiring my autonomic nervous system. You can't do that. No surgeries, no weighted blankets, no weighted vests, no weighted gels, no this, that, or the other are going to change what I need to regulate. It's the same regulation I've always needed since I was a baby. That will never change. The only thing that changes is the number on the years of life that I've lived, the depth of my voice, and apparently the amount of gray hair on my beard from all the stress that I have. Ask everybody in the house. Apparently I have enough of a gray beard to basically make, we could paint the walls gray with my beard at this point. Just put some paint on the walls. Hey, here you go. Just brush your chin along the side of the wall. Let's see if you can give us some gray finishes here. All right, cool. By the way, just a pro tip: do not use your beard as a paintbrush. That is not a call to use your beard as a paintbrush. Okay. So any man listening to this going, hey, I'd love to try that experimentation. No, please don't. Let's not say we didn't. Okay. I do not approve this message. Anyway, the point I want to make is this. First of all, kudos to the three, who I will only say by way of first name here, who understand my condition very well. Jess, who's lived in my home for 6 years. Nesma, who's been here for 3 years. And Haley, who's been here, Nesma's been here for 3 years and several months. Jess 6 years and several months, and Haley will be coming up on 2 years as of October 30th. All three of them have been understanding. Now, when I say three, there was a fourth person who very much understood my condition. She tragically passed due to a pulmonary embolism, which, for those who don't know, those who are medically, who may be medically unsavvy, a pulmonary embolism is when you have a blood clot in your lungs, and your lungs basically become so flooded with the clotted blood that it effectively traps the air in your arteries, and then eventually you're not breathing properly. It's one of the worst possible scenarios, and please forgive and excuse the fan noise. I had to turn some air on and behind me here. So one of the things that I want to emphasize, one of the things I want to talk about in this, and I said the kind of rejection, it's varying degrees of rejection. What if I don't want to be touched is one of the most common ones. The other common one is, that looks really weird. The other one is knowing what to do when you need to regulate, but then when the time comes, not. The other one is, as soon as you regulate, going out on the back porch and telling somebody that things happened that didn't, people basically perverting and sexualizing my conditions. I'm sorry to say I will not append a trigger warning to this, for the reason that this is not the time for trigger warnings. This isn't the time for, hypersensitivity. This is a time for understanding a rare autonomic condition. And if I put a warning on this, it's only going to be a warning of, if your eyes well with tears, I am duly both responsible for that by way of telling you society's failures, but duly unresponsible for it if your tears are that of fear and judgment. Let's talk about 2002. I mentioned it briefly, but let me go into deeper detail. The Turkey Bowl in 2002, I was a student. I'm going to avoid names here on this one, partially because of the fact that I'm still being cautious with this situation. And before anybody asks, no, I did not get into any legal trouble, just told I was not to contact the residential home of this individual. I will, however, mention their friend's name for the sake of the fact that they were somebody I only met once, and that was it. This, as I'm hearing way too much noise and things, my apologies. When I this girl Mandy came up to us during the Turkey Bowl and started talking. Now, I didn't know what the name of my condition was. I just knew I needed to be regulated because I knew what I was about to experience, and I made mention of that I needed to be held, and that there were reasons why medically, but I couldn't explain the specifics. Naturally, when you say that to a person, what's the first thing that you suppose they do? There's a lot of hesitation. She said, I don't think that's appropriate, and so on and so forth. Well, then we got to talking. I apologized and basically let myself mask. If you read the details on my condition, you understand about what is referred to as a discharge. They must have seen it because as I'm moving around a little bit, bobbing and weaving, rocking, the lower part of me moving a lot, and that happens a lot prior to the condition. So if I'm wrapped around a person, they're gonna notice that. Well, I was kind of moving around in the chair or on the bench seat a little bit because I knew something was about to happen. And here's the thing. I hear, "Hey, we'll be right back. We're going to run over to the restroom real quick." Here comes this male person that never did I know, never did I meet, who went ahead and took me from the Turkey Bowl to an event he was scheduled to go to. And I told him, I said, "You have to run me by Staples." My mom at the time worked at Staples. And I said, "Mom, they sent this guy with me, so apparently the person I left with wasn't the person that I'm coming home with." And Mom doesn't know this guy from Adam. So Mom was really, really, really aggravated. Let me point this out. Aggravating my mother was never a good idea. Especially if what you did was, my son is leaving with one person and then comes back with a total stranger. He has no idea who the person is. Especially at my age. I was only 15, about to turn 16. We hadn't even hit December 7th yet. Remember, that's my birthday, December 7th. I want you to remember this. I hadn't turned 16 yet. So, of course, Mom was very annoyed. "Why are you taking my son?" So he asked for a word with Mom, and I knew what was said. The girls said they felt uncomfortable with him, so they sent him with me. Well, we thought we had rectified the situation because once I got home, I thought, all right, well, I did thank all of them for bringing me, but I was disappointed in the outcome. I brushed it aside. I called the other girl back, not Mandy, but the other girl, because I didn't have communication with Mandy. Remember, I only saw her once. The gal said the gal never answered her phone, and I thought, okay, she's busy, so I'll try again later, which I didn't end up doing. I just let the days pass, playing music on a keyboard, just performing, doing my usual stuff, playing the keyboard, and staying to myself to avoid trouble and things like that. And actually, when even we're testing out a speaker that my mom's then friend / ex-husband had brought over that he wanted me to test. And I'm, doing what I do best. I just messing with my cassette tape. So I get back on the keyboard and start playing a little music. And as I'm playing the keyboard, I get a knock on my door. One of the people that lived with us said, "Hey, Brandon, someone's on the phone and said they wanted to talk to you." And I said, "Who is it?" And I said, "I don't know." So I walk over to the phone and I grab the landline. We had corded phones. Back then, yes, we actually had corded phones. For those of you in the younger generation, your cell phones sound good, let me tell you that. But back then we used good old-fashioned analog landlines. In my opinion, the most reliable phone service you'll ever have is not your VoIP line. In fact, I think the best reliable source of communication is your good old-fashioned carbon phone line. Give me that carbon phone line any day, and I will give you an excuse to keep using it. I thought about paying off CenturyLink and just reinstating my home phone number and getting rid of the VoIP landline service. I thought about doing it. Although I felt like keeping the VoIP landline service for a backup plan, in case, for when, if I ever happen to go somewhere and I want to take calls on my cell phone from my landline number as a backup. So, I mean, I've been on the fences about it. I mean, they're not asking for that much money, so I could easily just call and, make that a thing. I've very much thought about doing that. And I might still. I don't know why I don't. I should. But all of that in mind, okay? The call comes from a sergeant of Scottsbluff County, or Scottsbluff City PD. Mind you, I lived in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Other synthesizers will pronounce it Scottsbluff, but it's actually pronounced Scottsbluff, even as one word. The county, by the way, for you geographic nuts, is actually separated into two words, Scotts space Bluff County. But the town name is one word. So I get a call from the Scottsbluff Police Department. Have you been contacting the insert name here residents? And I'm inserting name because we're not going to include the first or last name of the person. And I said, yeah, I called her for a youth group trip on, because I'm supposed to be going to youth group on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. I had to find a different route. Why? By the way, I didn't end up not going back to youth group because of this. He says, well, they're telling me that they told you they don't want to contact you anymore and you're still contacting them. I said, nope. In fact, I said, they never explained that to me. See, I have a photographic memory. That's one thing to know about me, is I have a photographic memory about if you tell me something, if Nesma, who's behind me, you hear her wrestling a bag behind me. If she says a silly word and then in this video, 5 minutes later, asks me to tell her what silly word she said, I can come back and relay it to you exactly what she just told me. I can tell you that 5 minutes ago, a little over 5 minutes ago, I paused the recording to tell Jess that her audio had been bleeding into my recording. That's how photographic my memory is. I can remember what I tell you, and though I may not be able to word it verbatim, the exact way that it was worded, I can tell you the event and the tenet of the message. Photographic does not always mean perfect. In case anybody thought about the word perfection and the word photographic being synonymous, that is not entirely true. At no point did the residents tell me they did not want me to call them. I had to find out through a police sergeant, a well-respected gentleman, by the way. He understood my frustration, stayed on the phone with me for 5 minutes, and we didn't just talk about why he called. We had a normal conversation. It was actually a really decent one. Talked about, his hobbies, his interests, and I found out he loves to go fishing, apparently, which is quite interesting, because so does my mom. I'm not the fisher guy. I'll go out there with you, but I'm not exactly a good fish catcher. Unless you can find me some catfish, and then, yeah, I can catch them real quick. Tell me where the best place to catch catfish is, and I'll get me a fishing pole. Guarantee I'll be out there and probably reel in a couple good ones. Have somebody help me fillet them, do the job you got to do, and then turn around and make some homemade catfish. That's my definition of going fishing. I don't know that I'm not good at certain fish aren't as easy to catch. I don't know. I've had little to no success with other ones, but doesn't mean I haven't tried other ones food-wise. That's irrelevant. You're going to find that I do this a lot because I do have ADHD. I'm also on the autism spectrum. I also have OCD. I also have anxiety disorders. And I also have, apparently, right now, a very, very overly heightened sensory system right now. Because if background noises actually are overloading me sensorily at times, more than they should be, my sensory is very heightened today. And it does. It'll vary. Some days you can ask Nesma and Jess. They'll tell you. Some days my sensory is great, and I can handle a whole lot of noise. And then there's today, where I just everything is too loud, or everything is too soft, or everything is too. There's nothing. There's no in between. And apparently, I was told I overslept a thunderstorm. Now, here's the point: I never oversleep thunderstorms, but apparently this one. That's what, 3 of them now I've overslept. Three. Here's the thing. That 2002 incident sparked a major chaotic storm. I could only think of 6 more people in the span from 2003 to 2008 that physically held me. And I will run them down for you without mentioning last names, okay? Or in some cases, without mentioning names at all. My stepsister in 2003. A visiting friend from Georgia that my dad and his then wife knew in 2003. Nobody in 2004, minus a situation in school when I was pulled out. Very selected. I'm not talking about the 1 or 2 people that may have offered, but fear sent me into the what if you do this to me stage. 2002 only had just happened, mind you. Nobody in 2004, once I left my dad's. Even during the time I was at my dad's during the second stint. That's a story of its own. Early 2004, I was with my mom. We were in Omaha. One gal I was hoping would regulate used the, I don't know if my boyfriend's going to be okay with that. Well, now I can say, couldn't back then, but can now, that if your partner mistakes regulating a medical need for infidelity, number one, that's probably the wrong partner. And you need to evaluate their level of faithfulness to you. If they are that judgy over something that even you don't know much about yet at the time. Well, that's the point I'll make on that. Nobody, one person in 05, but that one person right after that quickly, when she moved to Omaha, afterwards said she didn't know if she could handle being around me. Nobody in 06. An ex in 07/08. Another ex in 08. And that was it for being regulated. The last regulation that I had in memory, 2012, after the passing of my uncle. And even that got judged. Not by the person who did, but by other people around. 13, no. 14, on and off. One person. Massachusetts. 15, no. 16, no. 17, attempted, was met with resistance and judgment from the person who was working as a home health care / respite. 18, no. 19, no. 20, only one person. Same with 21. Same with 22. Same with 23. Nope, I stand corrected. 3 different people in 23. Except for one who was okay with regulating me till the day I decided that I didn't feel comfortable going outdoors because of a sunlight, the UV radiation exposure being too high, and I wasn't going to risk sun poisoning. And then, this one I will give a slight trigger warning to those who are victims of this. She said, well, he said no. He didn't feel like going outside. He said no to me, so I'm going to call and I'm going to make up a story that he SA'd me. She literally said those exact words. I only found out about it a day later. Now, I'll be honest, I should have found out about it the day of, because it would have been dealt with that day. I don't play games with that. So the delayed notification was not something I was highly impressed by. But that's neither here nor there. She left, and for the longest time wouldn't talk to me. Didn't apologize, none of that. The second one who regulated me, Nesma, behind me, she has experienced what I go through multiple times. Now, of course, I mentioned the first one, 20 through 23 through 20, Jess, she's had experiences with that, regulating me. She knows. But again, then there was Lexi, who was very tragically lost to pulmonary embolism, as I mentioned. Then we had made one other attempt in late 23 that was thwarted by a rash of trouble that led to an immense demonstrative amount of chaos. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that that person did apologize for their role in what was done to me involving my condition to me directly. So while we're on that subject, I don't want them to think we're talking ill, because I'm going to acknowledge the plus. I was apologized to, sincerely at best. And now they're wanting to become a smidge more educated on this, and it's part of why this material is going up. But then we go to mid-24. One person attempted, except their boyfriend was extraordinarily controlling, bitter, hateful, tried to hypersexualize my condition, which led to, by the way, because on top of that, conversations were being recorded without my permission. That led to the person being booted because, while she may not have been the one recording, she enabled it, and she was enabling insulting statements to be made. Allowing Jess to get bullied, and I don't allow anything of any bullying nature in my home. So that problem was dealt with accordingly. Only to be met with a series and a rash of videos, if you're watching this from TikTok, on this very platform. For those not watching on TikTok, if this goes up in any Facebook Reels or any other social media Reels, on TikTok, where a girl from, and I just realized, and I'm going to correct this in my packet, in my info packets, that I said North Carolina and I meant South Carolina. Clearly I need to get my states right. A girl from South Carolina, north or south, it's no difference to me. It's still the Carolinas. We'll just say the Carolinas. How's that? Made a TikTok video. Now, it's not the first time a TikTok video has been made negatively about me, because in the early part of 24, there were plenty of those too. Please refer to We Failed if you're on TikTok, or a audio site called Ramblio for further details. The video basically said, be careful if you're a woman and you're blind. Brandon may trigger alert here, SAU. That got over 400 shares. Through the Blind Talk tag and many other places. 400 shares. 400 shares. Here's the disappointing fact. My family got a hold of it, notified me about it. They wanted to intervene, but I said no. There's a reason I said no. Because a majority of them, like a majority of you, did not understand what SAD-T is and why I require the regulation that I do. Please again refer to the explanation video, although I'll briefly point out facing you in a hug in a person's lap, in a sister figure's lap, or what have you. There's a reason. See, people say, well, you never mentioned it. I was forced to not mention it. When you're greeted with "you're too old," and you're greeted with all of that, at some point you begin to think about the fact that people are not gonna just, understand you. What are they going to say? Well, let's go to the doctor and get you tested. You can't really test for SAD-T in the conventional way. They do blood tests, everything's going to come back normal. Neurologically speaking, it's bad enough a genesis of the corpus callosum is a thing, but there's enough problems that autonomically you can't plan for an SAD-T episode. You can't force one to happen. I mean, you can, some things can, if they're close to happening, can trigger a sensory loop that then can make an SAD-T episode occur. That's a very long explanation that I will refrain from doing here, because that will be its own video called, literally it's going to be called SAD-T Sensory Loop Understanding. I could write 1,000 packets, but I think this one requires a more auditory explanation. So we will do that in a later video. What I'm going to tell you is, those videos got 400 shares. Contacts on my Facebook started to judge what I needed. Well, that's weird. That's inappropriate. You shouldn't be doing this. You should blah, 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 blah. People who were once understanding became closed off. 2025 happened. Now, when I say nobody in 25, I don't mean nobody within the home. Haley came in October of 24. She's regulated me before, so save for her and the rest of this household. Nobody outside the grips of this household has either offered or wanted to regulate, to experience firsthand what I go through. They said they would, but the likelihood of seeing them and that happening is the same likelihood of getting a tornado in a winter storm or a snow in the middle of a hot day in summer. Not going to happen, right? You can't get snow in 90-degree weather. I'd love to see that one. Hey, I got ice on my front porch. Wait, huh? You know, because ice turns to water. You know this. Anybody that's ever understood the difference between solid and liquid. Solid does not stay solid does not stay solid in heat. When ice is melted, it turns into water, because that's all ice is. If it's precipitation. See? Now that I've established precipitation and ice and all that, and somehow managed to relate that to what I just said, let me now clarify the facts here. Only one attempt to try to regulate in 2026, and it occurred last week. I say attempt, in that we attempted. Said, hey, can he wrap around you so you can see what it's like to have a hold of him? The very promise made the night before turned into an awkwarded out, almost, and Nesma's with me kind of in the background, but I'm going to bring her quickly to the foreground on this. I'd say almost a resisted, how do you put it? There's a word I'm looking for, but I don't even think I got it here in my pocket. I don't want to say weirded out, because she didn't pose like, oh my God, get him away from me. I mean, considering the hug that I got before she left, wasn't the push away kind of hug. It was almost a embrace of sorts. So, I mean, clearly it wasn't a get away from me kind of thing. I don't know if the tension was just palpable that day, and maybe it caused but it led to something happening to me that we didn't need. Regardless of why it happened, it wasn't a good deal. It didn't help that I was already dealing with a family-related issue that was connected with the individual that, and I'll be honest with you, that was sort of a mess that I hope I never have to watch happen in front of my face ever again. That was a week of my life I will never get back. But be that as it may, we are in August of 2026. I have just toured you around the bullying sequence. Now let's talk about society's failure. When you hear of a rare condition, or you hear a person say, I have a male friend who's looking for sister figures, let me talk about something. If a woman said, I need a male figure in my life, everybody would jump to and try to find one. They don't care. And when they find them, they introduce them. It's like clockwork. Funny how that works, isn't it? Because when a man needs the nurturing care of a sister, all because he's a full-grown adult, it suddenly is suspicious. Yes, Facebook administrators, I'm looking at you. Yes, I'm looking at you, administrators of other places. Or people that run live streams who are watching this and saying, well, yes, I'm looking at all of you. Every single one of you that judge, that think that because a person needs a sister figure, who literally just said he hasn't had a sister figure in his life who's ever stuck around. Now, the girls sitting in front of me, -1, would tell you, they would say by their own admission, they've been guilty of not sticking around in one reason or another. And that's not to expose problems, by the way. They know this. I assume they know this. Yeah? Why do you think that Nesma posted the video called "We Failed." For those who have not, that don't follow her on her social media, you should really look at that video because it correlates with what I'm talking about. "We failed" is really a call to action for the rest of you. I'm talking about the yous that messaged me on Facebook and the hundreds of people ambushing, saying, some of the worst possible things. And some of the messages I got, which I showed one of the messages that I got to the household, and the rage that filled the room when I did that. I literally thought my wall was going to come off of the top of was going to be separated from the ceiling, and that somehow the one side of my house was going to be expanded by about 30 feet. And that we were going to need to add more flooring just to accommodate for that wall movement. I have never seen an entire house enraged in that manner since the one time that I visited a friend when I was going to school, and they had a situation happen with one of their friends, and they actually were so enraged they had to send me home. Literally their exact words: "I so want to spend more time with you. I'm just so mad that I don't want to hurt your feelings unintentionally. You did nothing wrong." I asked if they wanted to talk about it. They shared with me, but then of course we get home and they're like, "You know what? Screw it." And then they bring me back to the house. I mean, that was kind of fun. Mom's like, "You're going already?" Oh. Yeah, they decided, I guess, that they wanted me to be there still. That one was a funny story, but am I going to tell you that my life has always been full of funny stories? Oh, I've got plenty of those. Not full of it, but I have plenty of them. I love to share them. I love to share a lot of my life. This is a reality I never thought I'd have to share. But maybe it's about time I stopped saying I'm ashamed to share it and start saying it's time I did. Is anybody hearing what I said? Listen to that last bit I said. I'm going to say it again. I said, it is about time I stopped saying how ashamed I am to have to share this detail. Maybe I need to start talking about how important it is that I do share. Because the problem is a society will never learn how to accept something they don't know until someone breaks them. Until you break with an apology. "Oh my God, I am so sorry I ever judged you. If I ever judged you, please hold me accountable. Because the error of my ways is so great, I damaged you." You know what? I'd love for the day to come when a person who's judged a condition that I have walks up to me or just finds me on a social media platform and says, "Hey, Brandon, sweetheart, talk to me, please." When I then say, "But about what?" And then this long message comes up. I maybe this is just me dreaming, because I know it. I'm sorry to say it. I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but I know it's not going to happen. But when I then get that message saying, "Hey, I need to tell you something. It's what you've been needing to hear forever. I failed you. I was supposed to be your friend that regulated you. And you couldn't tell me what was medically wrong with you because you didn't know. And what did I do? I judged you in our school days. If I had known then what I know now, I would have been on fire for supporting you." Do you realize one person, having one person in the home advocate for you is great, but what about the people outside the home? I don't care how many inside do it, because 3 could do it, and still it doesn't mean that it's really helpful. Not because their advocation isn't helpful. Believe me, it is. But because think of one person advocating as one body, a body of four, a body of three, cannot make something work when their foundation is thwarted by a judgmental society. Professionals, I'm looking at you too, because ethics and boundaries. Well, let me explain ethics and boundaries for you for a second. The ethic being broken is you're hearing about a rare condition that requires an unconventional form of regulation. The boundary is what's needed to regulate. You cannot sexualize a condition that a person has whose autonomic nerves are wired in such a way that they wouldn't. I mean, come on. You're going to hear something out of me that you will have thought you've never heard out of mankind in many years. You are talking to a guy that would know nothing about sexual attraction. Doesn't know a thing about it. I don't know what it's like to be sexually attracted to somebody. That is a whole different area that I've never experienced. And perhaps the fact that I have an autonomic wiring pattern that never matures and requires the kind of regulation it does is what people think and mistake as sexual attraction. But I kid you not, I don't feel better after being regulated. I just feel regulated. From the discharge factor side, I don't feel like I've shall I say, internally been rained on. No, this is not I Love a Rainy Night. And no, this isn't listening to the sound of the falling rain, telling you what a fool I've been, okay? Actually, Rhythm of the Falling Rain. I got the words wrong. Whoops. All of that to say the following. Unless you're all in, don't offer. Unless you can remove the mask that society has placed on what a man should be versus what a man is. Can I explain that man is the last three letters in the word human? Woman ends in the word man. The word mankind is formed off the word human. Do you see where I'm going with this? Man, 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 mankind, human, woman, gentleman, woman, gentlemen, men. Although you don't write human, H-U-M-E-N, that's the only time where E is not applied. But you get the point. Do you hear what I'm doing? I am causing you to have to look back at yourself for a minute and inquire as to whether or not you actually broke yourself and society by enabling the fearmongers to win. If he has a condition that requires him to be physically held, then he must be a predator. No. Thank you very much, but that's not a lifestyle I choose to lead. You know what a predator is, right? Somebody that looks for somebody for sexual gratification. They prey. The word predator means to prey on. To prey on something of a vulnerable nature. You know what's predatory is the judgment of society. Now, I'm going to say something, and if I hear a yes from Nesma, I'll know I said something very powerful in about 5 seconds. Because when I say something powerful, she has a voice when she needs it. You want predators? How about the people who judged me for 34 years out of my 39 years? How about the people who called a police department because they didn't want to hear from me, but they were too closed and shy to tell me themselves they didn't want to talk to me? Quote, because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, end quote. Actually, the fact is, it wasn't because you didn't want to hurt my feelings, it was because you knew the reality that you were faced with was one you couldn't handle. A man with a condition he couldn't explain because back then the doctors didn't have a name for that condition. What's wrong with physically holding your friend? You know what? It's funny. If a woman sat in a guy's lap, the first thing that would happen is, oh, that's so cute. Oh, hey. You know, either she needed regulation or she needed comfort for her breakdown. But a man doesn't. Let me tell you what happens. He's a predator, avoid him. He might not be somebody you want to associate with. Be careful. Look out for the signs. If he looks weird, he is weird.
That's so sexist.
That is the most sexist thing I've ever heard in my entire 39 years of life. And you know why it's okay? Because we as a society, and I'm sorry to be a bit vocal about this, but because we as a society have failed mankind as a whole. We have essentially taken a person. Now let's forget Brandon with SAD-T for a second. Let's talk about the general public for a minute. Because here's where things get a little bit interesting. Okay? The general public, I don't care if you have a rare or a known condition, is the after effect of bullying, the aftermath of the bullying that we suffer for having any condition, known or unknown, is greater than we will ever understand. I hear you trolls right now typing away at your keyboard in my head, writing how sick and perverted this guy is for what he just said. I hear you out there that's judging, saying, well, he's creepy, I'm turning this video off and I'm reporting the content creator. Good, go ahead and do it. Because here's the problem. When they realize that nothing that was said violated any content rules, you're going to find yourself disappointed that you actually turned around and tried to silence a person that's different than you. But yet, here's the issue with our society. When these same people shaming people with known conditions and unknown conditions are the same ones I see putting up TikTok campaigns. Yes, celebrities, I'm talking to you too. I've seen how many of you talk about your life story and how difficult it was to go through life because either you had an abusive past or because you had a past where you were traumatized or because you were shamed for a condition you had or because you go on America's Got Talent or some of these other famous shows, which, by the way, are great shows. In case you haven't watched them, they're great because you get to see a lot of people. But you know what the bad part about it is? As soon as that fame hits you, and you've been on America's Got Talent, or you've been on these shows, suddenly the facade of your humanity disappears and your fame suddenly overtakes you to the point where if your social image is even remotely questioned, then you're shunned because you helped somebody in need. Because of our society being way too, pardon my French, way too damn judgy. When are we going to hold each other responsible for the judgmentality that we face? Yes, a person should respect somebody's boundaries. But if a person has a condition that is out of their control, we have got to widen our boundaries a little bit and not be so, well, if you do this, then you're disrespecting me. Fun fact. Lexi, that we sadly lost, was very touch-averse. You can ask you can ask the girls here in the house.
Yeah.
She was very touch-averse. She did not necessarily like touchy-feely. She was kind of a, yes, I'll give you a hug, I'll do silly stuff with you, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to sit back in the chair and do my own thing. And she told me that, but then I mentioned my condition, which I didn't know what the name of it was, but I didn't have to know that with her. Because she said one word to me that I wish others echoed. Brandon, I already know what's going on with you as medical because of what you described. I will do whatever you need. Just ask. It may not be the most comfortable at first. I may be a little bit, if I seem awkwarded out, please ignore that. I don't want you to run from me. Matter of fact, the first time I wrapped around her, I did. I tried to pull back, and then, let me tell you something. You don't pull back from somebody whose arm suddenly comes from in front of them and then behind them. After I told her that her arms being in front of her, to me, was a move out cue, her answer was, okay, well, in the future, I'm not going to do that. So she never did that. She didn't know what I had been through because I had never gotten to tell her all of what I'm telling you in this video. Do you all realize I am going deeper than I've ever gone into my own life story, and not even on my own platform? Why? Because my platforms probably are going to be going down. Maybe. Not all of them. I've been begged, pleaded, and even just asked repeatedly to keep my music stuff going and my text-to-speech stuff going. You get that many requests, you might as well do it. So I'm gonna. But my communication methods may start to dwindle. May. Because a society that's this judgmental will never change until they're shaken to their core. And I'm about to shake you to your core. Let me ask you a question. You're the guy in the car driving a red SUV. You come upon a corner, and suddenly behind you, somebody in a Jeep Grand Cherokee crashes into your backside. But they crash so hard, they total the back end of your car and crumple it so badly that you get injured. You suffer a broken leg. Your arm has to be in a cast. You end up on crutches for at least 6 to 8 weeks. Meanwhile, the onlookers that walk past you don't judge you. They say, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" "Oh, I was in a car crash." "I'm so sorry." "Yeah, it kind of gets hard to move around. I have a hard time bending this way, that way, so it's painful." You want to hear you want to hear something cute? They look at them and say, "If you need anything, here, I'll put my number down on a piece of paper. If you ever need me to drive you anywhere, call me and I'll drive you." But guess what? A man who needs regulated for a condition he can't help, for an autonomic nervous system that doesn't mature because it is stuck in an infantile loop that will never change, guess what he gets to do? Sit by himself. Sometimes cry on his pillow at night. Cry on the shoulders of those that live with him. Angry that they're the only ones willing to regulate, which in their eyes, to some, they feel, well, why should that bother you? But when you really think about it, it should bother you. That why are you the only three? Why are you the only three who say, "I get it"? Out of a society of millions. And only 3 get it. I'm telling you, that is not okay. It's also not okay to make excuses about why. Here is the thing that is actually not okay. Pardon the phone in the background. Is what happens when you need a different form of regulation or something a little bit different. Maybe you needed a sensory loop because the sound got too loud in your ear. Maybe you needed a boatload of other things. And yet, people look at you with a judgmental sense. Now, here's the biggest one. Why does it take a sensory lanyard, a sunflower lanyard with a laminate, to emphasize the need for sensory regulation so that an onlooker is not judging you? Can anyone tell me this? No, you can't, because there's no justification for that. None. No justification. When I was going to school, I know you're going to sit here and say, well, Brandon, when I was in school, they didn't have this back then, when I was, back in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. Actually, I'm going to stop you. Of course they didn't, because medical research wasn't that vast back then. If I'm truthful, because society failed you back then. What if you had weird symptoms you didn't understand? I'm sure you're real happy now to know that medical research has gone far enough. If you're 60, 70 years old and you found out about something you had as a kid that you didn't know you had, and you're sitting here saying, okay. Thanks for telling me. It took my mom till she was 57 years old to find out that her optic nerves had not fully developed. Did you know that? She was 57 when she passed. She was 57 when she found out her optic nerves had not developed fully. Want to hear the odd part? I was born without them. How do you like me now? There's a point. That point is society hasn't learned that because we keep looking at each other through a looking glass, abnormalities that we call falsehoods may actually be truths. And we're failing each other by judging one another. Yet I see all of these TikTok videos. I see all these videos on other platforms. If you click on the, and on all these other social media platforms, I see all these videos. I see all these text-based posts. You could look at Telegram, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I don't care what other mediums. I could mention 1,000 of them. Although, in some cases, I have to be slightly delicate because certain social media sites have a bit of a governing about mentioning other platforms, which I find, quite frankly, is a little absurd. But hey, that's their prerogative. But we'll leave that as it is. I've probably broken that one about 5 or 6 times already in this video. But guess what? I'm sorry to say that to you, but if you're not the only social media platform out there. There are many. But in saying that, it is sad when we have to have anti-bully organizations because things have gotten so out of control that just one person speaking up isn't enough. When an anti-bully organization has to step up and get involved because there's such an immense level of bullying, I'm going to tell you all a little story, okay? This is how bad the bullying has become. Some of you have watched the videos about a girl that was 16 years old, I believe, that took her own life as a result of being bullied. And a lot of you would say, well, she could have asked for help. I asked the question, where was the help? Why should she have to ask in a society that claims to want more love, when what should have happened is as soon as somebody saw it, instead of being afraid, well, what if they go after me? What if they do this to me? What if they do... If your fear governs your ability to stand up for what's right, you are as much a part of that semicircle as the people who are doing the bullying. And you could say that is perhaps the most harshest thing I've heard. Well, you know what? It's also the most truthful thing you're going to hear. If you can systematically watch while somebody gets bullied, but yet come back with a, I'm afraid that if I say this, this will happen approach, you are effectively saying, well, there's nothing I can do. I wish you the best. Your friends should never allow you to be bullied. Ever. Your real friends don't say things like, well, I can't get involved because it wasn't my problem if you get bullied. Because if they're saying that, you know what they're really telling you? Well, it's rather unfortunate, but you're just going to have to deal with it. That's our society today. I wish I could help you, but you're just going to have to deal with it because it's part of life. It doesn't have to be. It shouldn't be. And it really shouldn't be acceptable. So here's my next question. When are we going to ever learn that we are no longer going to take this? I will no longer stand up and let bullies dictate the course of everybody else's life. I don't believe the landscape on my situation will ever change. Yet. Now there's an emphasis on the word yet. Until a very large scale effect occurs, wherein we hold responsible those who choose not to accept reality for what it is. Let me pose a question. Are you that person who's going to listen to my video, comment and say, the bullying of Brandon needs to stop? Or are you going to comment and ask, where does he live? Let me show him humanity exists. I applaud the younger generation of people that wants to learn. And you know what? When it comes to sister figures, I'm looking for younger sister figures. You know, people roughly, you know, in the age, you know, range of, you know, right around, you know, Nesma's age, if anybody knows Nesma. You know, 20s and 30s. Younger sister figures, what's wrong with that? Shouldn't be anything wrong with it, right? Because you know what? I want people that want to learn from the beginning, because you are going to be the next me one day. realizing things about yourself that people didn't tell you, and why you've been judged for certain things, and you're going to be approaching and you're going to say, you know, what did I allow in my life? Let me tell you guys what a typical day is like for me. I wake up. I lay back down. I eat a little bit. Drink a Monster. I had 2 of them today. If I have them. Not. Big old bottle of water. A little bit of Sunny D, apple juice. Mountain Dew. Orange cranberry juice. Orange or cranberry. Not together, thankfully. I would rather not have those together, thank you. But I'm saying all that to point this out. Do we have to continue to let somebody isolate themselves on their back porch before we accept somebody just as they are? Do we have to judge somebody by things they can't control before we're accepted? I'm really hoping the answer is no. Let me tell you something. When society has decided that we're done judging, we're done hating, we're done shaming, we're done ostracizing, that's when you can start talking about where's the love. But until you change your landscape, until you say, I'm done hating, I'm done judging, I'm done shaming, I'm done, sexualizing a condition that I've never heard of before. Until you've done that, I'd rather not listen to your posts about how you want this world to be a better place. Because believe me when I tell you this, you're not going to get that until you start changing. And I'm looking at you that post about, how you want your boundaries respected. But if you can't respect a person's medical need any more than another person disrespecting your boundaries, how can you talk about that? How can you talk about, I want to be loved like I am, but you can't love others like they are? How can you make a society better while still casting a judgment on somebody's appearance? Oh, well, her teeth are decayed severely. She must be ugly. Oh, she has this much, or he has this much weight on him. He looks fat, or he looks, he's you, blah, blah, blah. That's your society today. Go into a store, I promise you. Listen to the gossip. Watch what happens. And when you actually listen to my monologue here, and then you listen to what I've had to say, you will absolutely cry yourself to sleep looking at the vast judgment that we have allowed to happen. And I promise you, it is the most embarrassing, it is the most disappointing, it is the most bitter, and it is the most ruthless, the most destructive, the most hateful thing I have ever seen. And it's all on one account. Let me tell you what it is. You ready? You have judged those who have not judged you. I don't know your name. I don't know what you've gone through. I'm not going to judge you for what you look like. You could be wider than my recliner, and I still wouldn't judge you. You could be tiny, and I still wouldn't judge you. You could have a vibrato-like laughter, and I still wouldn't judge you. You could have a gaspy kind of seal laugh, and I still wouldn't judge you. You could have a speech impediment that affects the way you talk and makes you stutter between every word, and I still wouldn't judge you. You might have a mobility problem, and I still wouldn't judge you. You might have a difficult time verbalizing at all, and I still wouldn't judge you. You might be shy. I still wouldn't judge you. You might be what is often known as preppy, or what they call the stereotypical preppy, you know. Like, dude, that's like awesome, okay? You know, whatever. But still, I still won't judge you. You could be the powerful person who talks loud, because for you that loud voice is what got you through life. But guess what? I'm not going to judge you. You could be that person that's touch averse, but I'm not going to judge you. What I ask is, can you put the one thing in play? I know people. I talked to a person who's very touch averse, who, when I shared the details of my condition, said, Brandon, I don't like human touch at all, but you're an exception. I just wish you lived near me, but you don't, and that's depressing. That happened a while back. Unfortunately, I lost contact with that person because they left the social media platform because they were getting bullied by some people. But you know what? That's a point. That's the tipping point right there. I don't like human touch at all, but you're an exception because you have a medically related condition, and I will go above and beyond. But where is that person who doesn't care who they are, who understands, okay, listen, I audibly know who you are and that what you sound like. If you touch my hand, I'll know what your hand feels like. If you, if you laugh, I know what your laugh sounds like. If you cry, I know what your cry sounds like. If you sing, I'll know what your singing capacity is. I don't care how you sing. If you sing on key or not, doesn't bother me at all. It's still your voice. I'll still listen to it. You said to me, Brandon, I need a home. All right, tell me what you need. I'll get you here. I warn you, I have trouble. I'm trying to get moved at some point. But you know what? It's okay. Let's do this together. Just know if you understand my difficulties, just be understanding. That's all I ask. If I can sit here and not judge you because of the differences that you have, why can you as a society not change your landscape towards each other? I hear in a lot of groups, people, even in the VI community, who say, well, this sighted person judged me for this. And then I hear the opposite from the sighted community. I respect a person with disabilities, but not a person that does this or this or this, because that's weird. What are we? Kids? Fighting over a piece of candy? Or human beings struggling in this little thing we call life? Life is a puzzle. Life is an absolute puzzle, and every aspect of life will always be different. Now let me tell you who I am. I'm Brandon. I do have a sacral autonomic dyssynergia with prenatal tuberculin subtype, alongside autism, alongside ADHD, alongside OCD, alongside anxiety disorders, alongside a genesis of the corpus callosum. which is the separation of the two hemispheres of the brain. Cerebral atrophy, which is a shrinkage of the brain. A benign cyst on the base, consistent with abuse I suffered. Physical abuse, that is. By the way, there's something you don't know. I'm still Brandon, regardless of that list I gave you. I'll always be Brandon. My narrative isn't, I'm Brandon, and because I have these conditions, pity me. No. I'm still a part of an integral society. I'm just ostracized because people cannot handle a difference that does not fit their narrative. Reality is this. Reality is this. When you can change your judgment, believe me, you'll understand. People will pour to you. And those of you that think legislation changes are going to make that better, believe me, it won't. Because here's the thing. You don't need laws to break the cycle of bullying. You don't need a law named after somebody to make the point that has been needing to be echoed for years. Are you ready?
What's up with the number 4? You counting something?
What you need is the following. Accepting others for their differences and not blasting them for their failures. If a person has a medical condition that requires a specific need, let me ask you a question, and I'm going to give you another illustration. See, and I was afraid this was going to be a long recording because I knew exactly where I was going to go with this. If you know a friend that's a seizure patient, would you deny that person the care they need when they have a seizure? No. If your friend had a heart attack, would you deny them the care they need to make sure they were safe? No. If that person lost a loved one and needed to cry on your shoulder, would you deny them that shoulder? No. Tim McGraw wrote a song years ago that, while talking about different circumstances unrelated to this, the title was one of the most powerful titles I've ever heard. I don't know why they say grown men don't cry. Let me repeat that again, because that is a question that still to this day hasn't been answered. I don't know why they say grown men don't cry. It is the most powerful question a person can ask. If a woman cries, it's acceptable. A man cries, and we're told to stop the waterworks. Grow up and face the music. Maybe if you faced the music and understood that your judgmentality is the thing damaging our society right now, you might just get somewhere. Answer me this one question. Are you that society that wants to keep judging? Or are you that society that wants to change? Let me tell you a fact. Until we change our attitude, we will never break the cycle. I want you to listen to that again. Until we change our attitude, we will never break the cycle. And the reason for that is simple. Because we haven't learned how to accept one another for our differences. Because we're too busy trying to destroy the mental welfare of one another. If you wouldn't judge a person with a varying degree of disabilities, why would you judge a person with an autonomic condition they can't help? Let me stop candy coating that for a second, and let me ask it to you the way that I'm pretty sure I can just hear Nesma's voice in my ear going, Brandon, I want you to ask that question again, but don't candy coat it this time. If you can, here, watch me. If you can help a seizure patient, a heart attack patient, a stroke victim, an abuse victim, a person who's lost a family member, a person in a car accident, a person after they come out of surgery, why can you not regulate a person with sacral autonomic dyssynergia that has a prenatal tubular subtype? Can I tell you why? Because you're so focused on the romantic aspect that you think it's romantic. There's nothing romantic about SAD-T. It's all about because first of all, there's nothing romantic about it. Nothing. So now that you know that, what are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go? If you're a woman watching this and your eyes have welled up and you're looking at your screen watching this and you're listening to the sounds of my air conditioner in the background and the sounds of the voices surrounding me who have been there, and asking yourself, why am I not there? You're it. Come on down. Door's wide open. But if you're that person standing in front of that screen waiting to write a comment that is designed to destroy the very fabric of my being, and you are there to try to find a loophole in which you can sexualize a condition that is not meant to be sexualized, I'm not interested in your comments. Nor am I interested in your curiosity seeking. I'm not looking for fair weather friends. I'm looking for real sisters. I'm looking for sister figures that say, hey, Brandon, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know the people you live with, regardless of how they relate to you. Hey, what if I took you all out to get ice cream? It's all on me. Doesn't have to be all on you, because knowing me, I'm the guy who says, well, if I get paid, I'm paying you back. That's just how I am. But when that day comes where you are absolutely just flat ready to be understanding, when that day comes, I want to hear your voice. I don't want to see a text. When you get a hold of whoever is responsible for distributing this video, and I hope it's more than one person, what I want you to do is message them and ask the following question. Is there a way, if you're anywhere near him, that you could let him hear my voice for a minute? Whether it's through a voice recording, or can I make a video that's private that you could send him so he can hear my voice? And I'll hook him up and he can talk to me anytime, so I can arrange to come see him. So I can be that fourth person, that fifth person, that sixth person, that seventh person. That I don't want just a... You'd say, well, why so many people? The bigger the network, the less strain it is on the remaining people around. The bigger the network, the more awareness there is. At no point can you can't condemn something you don't know. Can you condemn a house? No. Not unless it violates city code, right? Why would you condemn a medical condition and try to sexualize it? I just told you my condition doesn't know anything about sexual attraction, nor do I. I have relatives who had more raging hormones. I wouldn't know anything about that. And you would sit here and say, you're full of crap. I'm gonna bring, for at least a brief second, Jess on the horn here for a second with me for a second. I'm gonna put Jess on the horn for a second here.
What's up?
In all the years you've resided in my home,
Yes.
can you think of one time where I have ever talked about, in your honest opinion, and be honest, and I want you to be brutal, I want you to be blunt, and I want you to not candy coat, I want you to step as far as you can into the blue here.
Okay.
Can you think of one time where I've ever talked about myself feeling sexually attracted to anything?
Absolutely not. You had told me that you didn't
You know,
what that
I
was.
exactly. I know what it's like to be SA'd, trigger alert here.
I do.
I've been there. I've had it happen not one, not two, not three, but 4 times. And that's nothing to look back on and say, oh, well, he says it so nonchalantly. You know why? Let me tell you a fact. I'll tell you a very, very... I have cried myself to the point of exhaustion. I'm all cried out at this point. But where are you? Where are you that want a brother, sisters? Where are you that want that brother figure that's different, that person? But where's your acceptance? I don't want to hear, well, let me get, I don't want to hear, well, let me know more about you, because guess what? I'll tell you more about me once you get to know me. Believe me, I'm an open book. I love to talk about not only my interests, but your interests. I love to dive into that. You know, hey, if you like a certain book, I don't care if I'm a reader or not. Talk all you want about that book. I'll listen. I don't care how dark, how downright, absolutely just absurd that book is. Tell me about it. And the one last thing I want to ask you while I've got you on the horn, and then I'm going to go back
Yes.
to the wrap up on this, is if you could think of one change in society that you feel, first of all, where do you, especially the hypocrisy in society that constantly talk about love, but yet we can't give it.
Right.
I would think the words "love the unlovable" would have more value to them than just waiting for something serious and tragic to happen to someone before we actually start talking about that.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I agree, and I feel like, you know, girls, they want brother figures, but, why can't the guy want sister figures? Why can't, I'm someone who deals with sensory issues too. Why can't Brandon have sister figures and all of us be friends? Like, that, don't understand that. And why do we need sensory lanyards anyway? Why can't it just be accepted that we have sensory needs, that we have sensory issues that happen?
If her voice sounds wobbly, I think she's tired.
A little, yeah.
I can hear it in your voice. All right, I'm going to leave it at that because I can hear the tiredness in your voice. You're probably like, that's the last of the tired sound of my voice I want them to hear. I can tell. You're like, yeah, I don't want to hear that.
Don't get me on a rampage because I will rant. I don't care how tired I am. I will rant.
There are exceptions. I do remember one time you tried to go on a rant and you ended up falling asleep and had to stop the video.
I forgot about that.
You were ranting about I believe, an accessibility problem on an Android phone in a group we were in.
Yes.
Thankfully, on the Android phone, you can cancel recordings. Well, you can't do that on Unigram for Windows.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, she was using the phone, so she had the luxury of not sending the recording. I should have recorded it from my Unigram just to prove that, yes, even the most tired of people can rant about their phones. I'm kidding. I would never do that to you.
I know. I know.
Although, even if I did, you'd probably laugh at it a day later and go,
Laugh, but
you'd probably go, hey, and then be like, wait, did this actually happen?
I don't remember that. Did it actually happen?
Now, I end this video on one note. Actually, on two notes. One, I always end my videos with a funny story, which we'll get to at the end of the video. But it actually has to do with an SADT regulation gone completely wrong by no fault of anyone's judgment, but by the person wanting to try physically carrying me, which I'm not objected to. But, well, if you lean forward, well, we'll tell you more. I leave it at that, and I'll get to that story at the end. But until we, as a society, start learning to love those that are far different than us and more unconventional than we are, we have no business discussing the insubordinates of today's society, the dereliction of duty on the part of the medical front to not acknowledge, unless we ourselves are going to put ourselves in the shoes of someone else. Listen, don't ask me about somatic therapy unless you're going to talk to the somatic therapist about a sensory need that is a requirement. Don't talk to me about trauma therapy until you're going to advocate to the trauma therapist that he has an autonomic condition that requires a certain form of regulation that's going to be way different, and you make sure that they're willing to put humanity over a job title. Don't talk to me about, are you going to get it diagnosed through somebody else, when the diagnosis happened before the condition was ever named, and the only reason it's not in the medical charts is, in the words of my birth doctor, who I, by the way, tell you is perhaps one of the best doctors I can remember in my entire life. The same one who administered my double kidney surgery, or let my double kidney surgery to be administered and made sure that I was well taken care of, said, and I quote, to put what he needs to regulate in the medical charts would be like me being prepared to lose my license as a doctor. But along the same lines, he said, it is real what he goes through. And there isn't to be any mistaking about it. He will get bullied for it. He may even get ostracized, but he will get bullied for it at best. Were he still able to look at me now, I think he'd be highly, highly hurt that it's gone past the point of ostracization, bullying. You know, look, kids, the bad part is kids have there's always that bully in every school, every year. I mean, we dealt with it in my schools. You know, back then, though, principals took it seriously. Parents, let me tell you what's going on with today's society. Principals in schools are being taught that if the parent is rich and the parent has money, that all they have to do is listen to the parent of the bully, and the bully will get their way. Why do you think you're having a hard time stopping that bully from attacking your child? Because not enough people are saying, I don't care what money you make, I don't care what position you hold, and I don't care what job title you have. What I care about is that you have damaged my child, you have damaged my brother, you have damaged my friend, you have damaged my colleague, you have damaged my patient, you have damaged my client in ways that are not excusable in any way, shape, or form. Until you do that, until you hold everyone equally to the same standard, don't sit here and talk about I have standards. Everyone has preferences. What you call a standard may more or less be a preference. My autonomic condition is not a preference. What I need to regulate is not a preference. What I need you to do when you're regulating is not a preference. It's what I've always needed, what I always have needed, what I always will need. And by the way, can I tell you something? There will be a video explaining me verbally telling you what I myself need you to do when you're regulating me. The explanation explains the origin of the condition. In a future video, only to be posted perhaps once I see the results of this first video, and I will warn you, future videos about this are only going to be posted if we can get more people rallying behind us. If not, I don't know that I will post further. I will be honest. I cannot educate an unwilling to learn society. I can only educate people who want to know. 2 or 3 people wanting to learn is better than none at all. But if 2 or 3 people want to know, you can get a hold of me, or you can get a hold of those advocating for me, and we'll teach you. Are you going to break the cycle? Are you going to put an end to the judgmentality? Are you going to stop the vicious, painful, ignorant cycle that continues to be the virus of our society called hatred, judgment, bullying, trolling, shaming, ostracization, and destruction? Is it going to take a lost life for a society to wake up? We already have enough problems in our country with those that are trying to, push us away from the very freedoms that we have enjoyed for 250 years. And listen, I think it's amazing that as part of America 250 this year, we're going to have an IndyCar race in Washington, D.C. I am impressed. I wonder what the course is going to look like. I wonder how exciting it's going to be. Where is it going to be at? Like, what part of D.C.? I'm actually curious. I don't know yet. I haven't even looked up all the aesthetics yet. But
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for it. And you know what? May the best driver win.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a song a couple of years ago. I think it's a couple of years old now. Called All to America. And the line says, I give my all to America, this country that I truly love. From the hills to the endless plains, my heart belongs to the sky above. This song is one I wrote. Was it last year? No, I think it was it the year before? You all are better timekeepers here in this household than I am.
It was last year.
But if we want us as a country to be better and show what that really means, let's start by not judging the people that are different than us. I realize we are starting worldwide trends on social media. In that when we do something here, it follows everywhere. Sensory lanyards here has led to sensory lanyards outside the country. Because what's happened is our society has gotten away from acceptance, and we have veered more towards hatred than acceptance. Why should I have to have a sunflower laminate lanyard for a condition when the only thing that you need is your humanity? Your humanity should be my lanyard. Meaning, my sensory card should be not a card on a sheet of paper, but that human that says, now that you told me what you need, I'm here. Are you that one that can break that judgment? Can you break the chains binding us away from each other? Let's detangle these wires. Let's learn to be accepting of one another. And then when we finally accept each other, can we ever, and I want you to really listen to this, can we or will we ever be better? I'll answer the question of can we be better with a yes. Will we? Only when we choose to be better. I want you guys to know that a man with sacral autonomic dyssynergia, prenatal terbutaline subtype, should never feel like he should wish to be different. But today's cruel society has made me wish I was. May I say this to you? When you say, Brandon, only you can change your perception of society, let me remind you that that is not entirely true. I can't do it without society's change at heart. While you're busy questioning my friends who are advocating for saying, hey, my friend needs a sister figure, ask yourself this question. If you had no friends, and as a female you prefer male friends because other women have abused you, do you hear us men sitting here saying, well, that looks suspicious? Even men are finding it suspicious when another man says, I need a sister figure in my life. Stop it. Just stop it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't make me listen to that. Because believe me, I will shut it down every single time. If I cannot have a sister figure and you cannot have a brother figure without society saying, ew, that's horrible, then what's going to happen when we become friendless, isolated? The casualty rate will soar into the hundreds, into the thousands, into the millions. And I'm not making this up, folks. I'm telling you how reality works. Enough shunning from society, and boys and girls alike are going to find themselves on the brink of disaster by way of a choice we have made as a society to destroy their sense of self-worth. And girls, if you're having the same problem where guys are doing to you what is happening to us, to people like myself, where you're looking for a brother figure and you're being judged and being shamed for that, shame on them who are shaming you. You deserve a brother. Men, you deserve a sister. Everyone deserves somebody. Your best friends aren't strangers. They're friends when you meet them at first. Listen, I don't meet strangers. I meet friends. Are you out there? Are you listening? If you're out there and you're listening, I want you to be okay with being friends with those who are different than you. I want you to share that experience. Be proud of it. Wear that tag. I am the friend of someone with a condition I've never experienced before, but I'm so happy to be their friend that guess what? I will shout it from the rooftops because, you see, I don't know the meaning of bitterness when love is supposed to reign supreme. If I can forgive those who have hurt me, even the ones who have made me look the absolute worst, you can love the unlovable. My condition has thrown me into the unlovable category, but my spirit doth not waver because of one thing. A fight is not a fight until you throw the first blow. The blow I'm throwing is one of relentless accountability. It's easy to blame accountability on somebody else. It was my worker. It was my upbringing. You know, I treated you this way, Brandon, because I was taught this way when I was a kid and blah, blah, blah. No, no, and no. You only choose to judge somebody by choice. Let me help you understand this. You don't judge somebody because that's the way you were taught. You might not have been taught about different conditions, but you can't use "I wasn't taught how to not judge someone," because someone's going to look you in the eye and say that's wrong. I'm that one staring you in the face right now, except I'm not because you can't see me, but I'm facing my computer microphone. So pretend I'm looking at you square in the face, saying, don't ever let anyone tell you you're second best. There's only one you. There is only one beautiful you in this world. And when everyone says to you, you're the bad person, look at yourself and say, no. I'm beautiful the way I am. So what if you weigh 50 pounds? So what if you weigh 75 pounds? So what if you weigh 350 or 450? Who cares? So what if your laugh sounds like an opera singer who's holding a note for a long time? Who cares? So what if you can only say a few words before you run out of air and then have to take a breath? Who cares? So what if financially you just can't afford to be, you know, able to go to Walt Disney World? Who cares? So what if you slur your words as you speak because of a natural condition you have no control over? When I say who cares, I mean by that, I don't care what condition you have. What I care about is that you're still a human and you deserve, listen to me, the same love and acceptance that every human being on this planet deserves. If you told me today, Brandon, I want to physically regulate you, but walking might be difficult. Well, guess what? You don't have to physically lift me in your arms and carry me around. I mean, if you have the strength and you decide you want to, hey, I'm not going to hold it against you. Especially not when the story that I will be ending this video on will tell you exactly why it's a story I can laugh at, despite the fact that the person in question was also the same one who contributed to the videos being made by things she said behind my back out in an unenclosed area. But you don't need to be mobile. Your legs don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be the healthiest. They don't have to be healthy at all. I'm a weight shifter. The regulation that you provide is greater than any condition you'll ever have. Believe me when I say that. You are deeply loved. You are deeply understood. I will tell you this. you will never be forgotten. And to those who have judged me, who continue to judge, who say, I'm not going to do this, I'm sorry, but I can't. Well, I'm sorry you don't want to be that one who breaks the mold. But then please don't complain to me when people turn their back on you. If you're not willing to accept the unaccepted, to love the unloved, to value the unvalued, and appreciate the unappreciated. When you do that, believe me, the landscape of your life will be greater than you know. You know, when you believe you can do something and you band together, you can become greater than the sum of your parts. What parts am I talking about? Those that brought you together, the people that introduced you. I end by saying on that part, love those that have never gotten to experience real divine love. Love them in the same way you would love your next door neighbor, or your family member, or your coworker, or your husband, or your mother, or your father, or your sister. Show those that are unloved what a divine, real love is. When it comes to stuff regarding SAD-T, if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer. I won't accept judgmental comments that are rude and disrespectful. I will be happy to educate anybody that wants to know. Remember, how it affects me and how it affects others may be different, depending on what they experience. Their regulatory stories may be different, but I'm the first adult to ever come out and talk about it, because those other adults before me or after me probably are very afraid to tell their stories because of judgment. That mold can break, that cycle can change, and we're going to change that cycle today. I said I would end this basically explanation with a bit of a story. So a former, kind of a former friend of sorts, physically attempted to lift me to carry me one time. She figured regulating, I'm going to carry him first to the spot we're going to sit in so I can hold him. She had me lifted up, I was wrapped around her, and we were about to move forward till she leaned forward. Now, anyone that understands wrestling will appreciate this. A slow-mo body slam. Except not. She acted like a combination buffer and slow-mo drop down. Except we were both laughing so hard we couldn't help ourselves. We had everybody laughing. She's reached out since then, and we still tell that story about how it just takes one lean forward to put somebody down. Last night the arms let me down. Anyway, okay. But all of that to tell you, believe me, when you just when you thought things couldn't get funnier. But I'm going to end this in an even funnier story. And I know Jess hates when I tell this story, but I never told her yet, but what I'm about to tell is not the first go-round with putting the wrong ingredient in anything for me. You know that day you make a dish that's left over and you put the wrong ingredient
Oh yeah.
in a, like for example, 2014, I can tell you I thought I was making spaghetti over mashed potatoes when in fact I put cream corn in the mashed potatoes. But that still doesn't compare to 2020 because we had used a milk jug to store water. And you know why Jess is laughing. In case you don't know why, you're going to find out why. We had a box of, and I want to say it was either Lucky Charms or it was
No, it's all great.
it was an off-brand thing, and I think it was Count Chocula. That's what it
I
was.
gave you my chocolate.
Yeah, it was Count Chocula. Which, you know what? Hey, if they're gonna have Count Dracula, they may as well have Count Chocula, right?
Yep.
Count Chocula. Bigola. Anyway,
No.
now I say all that to say that as soon as we got done, I'm eating the cereal and it tasted normal to me. I mean, I'm just sitting there just consuming the food, and I didn't think anything about the ingredient inside the bowl. I mean, it liquefied the cereal, it made it less solid and made it chewable. And it still tasted like Count Chocula to me. But I hear this very faint laugh come from in front of me. Or rather beside me. Because suddenly, Jess is laughing very silently to herself. And in case you didn't hear a couple of in the background, she's grunting over here, isn't she? All right. And she's laughing very, casually, and I'm like, what's so funny? I thought maybe she saw something on her phone, because, she does scroll her phone even when eating because she likes to listen to different things. And I figured, well, hey, maybe she scrolled across to, TikTok was fairly new at the time. It had originally been called Musical.ly back in the day, and then they kind of, it was a couple years old and under the banner TikTok. TikTok was fairly, new then. It wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. Back then you didn't have lives either. You know what you had? What was it, like 3-minute video? I think the longest video was like 60 seconds. I think that was as far as you could go.
60-second videos.
Mm-hmm. It's for shorts,
30 and 60-second videos.
Well, turns out what she was laughing at was not the video on the phone,
I didn't know it was my phone most of the time.
which I only now just realized. See, I'm still learning things about that night that I didn't know. She said she didn't have the phone with her at the time. But here's the thing. Listen to this. She manages, of all things, to, she manages to do something very impressive. Hey, Brandon. Hey, Vev. We have silly nicknames for each other. We don't use the conventional, normal pet names that a, or even the most, often the most commonly used endearing nicknames for each other. So, hey, Vev. Yes? I need to tell you something. What? There's a silence. Okay? Now, let me tell you something. When you hear that kind of silence, you're thinking, oh, this is grave. This is bad. I accidentally put water in your bowl. The spoon came down on that bowl like the sound of a cannon going off. We're laughing so hard. Mom, mind you, comes out of the bedroom. Or correction, we go back to the back because we're like, we got to tell Mom this story. And of course, Mom was getting ready for bed. So when we knocked on the door, the first words out of her mouth, as you would expect when not wanting to be disturbed, "What is it? I'm trying to go to sleep." And I'm like, "Mom, I am aware, but you got to hear this." And I said, you know, going to sleep on a happy note definitely is a good thing. Now you got to remember, she's battling health issues. Oh, when we told her the story, let me tell you, we thought we were laughing hard. Nothing like a household of, at the time, there was me, Jess, Mom, my younger brother. Well, 3 out of the 4 of us turned that back bedroom into a riot of laughter. Mom was laughing for darn near 15 minutes. And Jess wasn't helping the cause because when she gained her composure, she leaned into my ear and goes, "Chocolate water. Chocolate water." I'm sitting there thinking, you can't be doing this to me. So, of course, whenever I tell that story, she's usually like, "No, no, no, you can't do this to me." Well, I can, and I just did. Because it's a memory that, when you think about it, explains that my boring, isolated life does have its moments of occasional hilariousness, and among many things, who to thunk it? Certainly not the guy in the red suit.
A lot more since then, too.
Oh. You mean like, since we're going to go there, before I wrap this video up, are you referring, of course, to the infamous time at Iowa Speedway where where the guy, when doing his mic test, rattled the bleachers so bad that he actually, that he gave both of us a bit of a start? I'm serious, guys. 1, 2, yeah, yeah. And then eventually he did this. 1, 2. Okay, now, obviously, I don't have that bassy of a voice in terms of the equalization. And the microphone that's on my computer does not do it enough justice.
Doesn't.
But give me that karaoke machine mic and I hook it up to the amplifier, and I promise you, that will change in about 2.5 seconds. Especially when it's plugged in and the floor's vibrating. My ear vibrated. It went so low.
Did mine. I was having ears
Later
infected.
on, we laughed about that. We even told the people that took us home about that, just how I'd never heard a human being go that low. Then I learned what it was like to talk that low pitch when I had a cold that year, the end of 23. Or no, that was 24, I believe, when that happened, right before Haley got here.
August of 24.
Oh, yeah. And
Oh, that was bad.
I had a cough, and my voice went so low at one point, Jess goes, "Are you trying to mimic the guy who was testing the PA for the Carrie Underwood concert at Iowa Speedway?" By the way, Nesma deserves a great deal of credit, because I said I'd never been to an IndyCar race, well, okay, I credit the radio station enough to say that, yes, there was an advertisement. Okay? But that advertisement could have played, and that opportunity could have been missed. It has nothing to do with them. I credit you because
And she talked to
you
me about
heard
it.
what happened.
I was like, yes.
And I had made mention that I'd never been to an IndyCar race.
And she had talked about it, and she was like, let's do it.
All of a sudden, here comes July 23rd. July 22nd, actually, a day I will never forget.
That was a fun day.
And you know,
Brandon, I think
Vic-
Brandon got the shock of his life.
Vix, Dixie and her husband. Listen, if I've ever seen a person at their age that could wrestle a headband in the wind.
No, I can't find the headband anymore.
And for those who don't know, I come up with silly words. So we affectionately, as a result of a long-standing story that maybe in a future video we'll do one of the a day in the life of Brandon videos where you just kind of hear about a little bit about my silly words and stuff. But just for the sake of time here, because I'm going to wrap this up, is one of Jess's favorite things to do when talking in a tiny voice is do that. So
Yes,
what we did with that is, therefore the headband we call the do that band. And so it took everything in me when telling you that story just now not to almost break ship and call it a do that band. But that's just part of the craziness that makes up the lifestyle of the person you know as Brandon. And in the words of the late Paul Harvey, only now you know the rest of the story.